questions are approximately the same. The person usually mentions some peculiar quality in himself that's somehow unique, different from perhaps the one that the next person will tell me about. But the same concern is reflected in every case. The person is living in satsang, living this work. Things are pretty good, and then things get not good. It goes through a period of dilemma, concern, suffering, confusion, resistance, doubt, needs to indulge himself, forgetfulness, loss of clarity, destruction of understanding, resistance to the Guru. All these qualities begin to arise. Usually when a person asks me a question, it's during one of these times when these apparently undesirable qualities are manifesting in some way. And the force of the question that I'm asked is usually, however it's expressed, it's somehow in the form of, well, what do I do about that? What's being communicated to me is, first of all, these things are happening. People like me to know that. What fundamentally is being communicated is a resistance to this aspect of conscious life. Is apparently negative quality, this negative cycle, in which even the things that seem to have been gained in satsang are somehow destroyed or put aside. Many people, for some reason or other, think that there's something wrong with that. It shouldn't be happening if you're involved in spiritual life. They seem to feel there's something mysterious about it, like I haven't said that this was going to occur. That hasn't been accounted for. So they think there's something wrong with them, perhaps. Something peculiarly and aggressively obnoxious about their own state. As distinct from everybody else who's obviously in bliss. I've spoken before about these phases. Maybe you've seen diagrams of how electrical cycles operate. You may have seen sine curves in technical books. This sort of S curve is usually a line across the center, and then there's a curve that goes up, and then the one goes underneath. The electricity that comes out of the wall can be run through a machine, and it makes a pattern like this on a screen, an up and down pattern. A living force is of that kind. This is a reason why traditionally the world is described as dualities, as the dualities. The realm of opposites. The reason it's described that way, and rightly so, from a certain point of view, is because of what is fundamentally going on at the subtlest level, at the level of the manifesting force. It is like this alternating current coming out of the wall. It is an endless cycle of phases, highs and lows, going at varying degrees of speed. When you take on the condition of satsang, it is like drawing that line down the middle on the oscilloscope screen in which you see this pattern. Ordinarily, a person is just randomly going through his games and he doesn't know what's happening especially. He has nothing against which to view that. But when he comes into relationship to the Guru, this line is drawn in consciousness. This stable, constant, against which the phases are always moving. One of the effects of this stable constant being established in a person's life is that he begins to become strangely aware of the qualities of his own life and consciousness. When he's happy, he's happier than he's been. And when he's unhappy, he's unhappier than he's been. At least it seems to him that this is so. People have the experience of sitting down and meditating in some traditional way. People very often say that thoughts have somehow become endless. They sit down to quiet the mind, and all of a sudden the mind seems more active than it ever was before they tried to meditate. It's because when you inject the stable constant into the condition of life, the qualities begin to show themselves. Their tensions begin to manifest. Whereas without this stable constant appearing consciously in life, you go up and then you go down. It's just this movement of strangeness. But when the constant is felt, every movement is felt in tension, in opposition to other tendencies. So taking on the condition of spiritual life makes you somehow more aware of the qualities that are always existing in you. Coming into satsang doesn't in fact increase these tendencies, but it establishes that stable constant, that real condition, in which the awareness of all these tendencies begins to become more and more direct, immediate, clarified. And so it's perfectly obvious then that the lower trough, or lower side of this phase of up and down will still exist in satsang while a person's in satsang. Just as the capacity for the highs also exists. The Guru's function is not to establish these highs, although the traditional approach would seem to be saying that is what the Guru's function is. He's supposed to get you as high as you can be. But the Guru knows that for as high as you go, you must go equally low. The Guru's function is this stable constant, the very self. He establishes that process and condition in your life in which the highs and lows become understood, in which your very existence moves into the prior condition.